All right, people of Twitch. Hello, how's it going? Good to see ya. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. I'm Abbers, if you don't know me. I play video games here on Twitch sometimes, but sometimes I interview other streamers about streaming. And so that is what we're here for. Do a little podcast called Why We Go Live. Jalen Johnston, hello, how are you? Welcome to Denver, by the way, Jalen. I saw that you officially moved, and I'm very excited. We should go grab a beer or something sometime. Today's guest is the amazing Mike the Quad. I'm going to go ahead and play a little channel trailer here so you can get to know him.
Ready, I'm in the wheelie and the dad. Let's go.
And a hollow. Oh! Oh shit. I just like. Oh my god! Look at him! You're so cute, I wanna cry. Where you going? What you looking for, a bad guy? One's left, hard left.
Those hands, I'm gonna give them all the pets.
Oh jeez. Ah! Fuck! Oh no! Look at some nightmare fuel.
I can't look.
I can show you the world. I think my levels of deduction are on a Sherlock Holmes status.
For your next podcast, or if you
Try to meet. 10 years a quad.
I have a couple of people
And it
that
doesn't
would
seem like it's been
recommend
that
if you wanted to, find people.
No, for sure. You should recommend all the people. I want to know.
All right.
Everybody, welcome Mike the Quad. How's it
Hello,
going?
hello. How's it going?
That's such a good channel trailer. It's great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Please recommend.
one of my good friends on Twitch made that, and
Nice.
yeah, she's amazing at editing and does like a whole bunch of artistic stuff, and so
Love
I
it.
was like, had that trailer is actually in a museum.
What? Explain.
Yeah, it's at the Museum of World Culture over in Sweden.
Okay.
And
How did that
there's one
happen?
I actually got somebody reached out to me. One of the curators of the museum reached out to me probably late last year. Just Discord messaged me, and I believe it was probably either through they found me on the online through Microsoft or just like through their channels or something like that. But they happened to message me, and of course I was a little hesitant, like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
Is this actually really a thing? Actually being into a museum, like being part of like an exhibit, and it's actually part of one of the exhibits. They're actually celebrating the culture of gaming.
Okay.
Not just from video games, but just the entirety of games. Think of like chess and like ancient games and just the whole history and the whole culture of it. And
Cool.
they wanted to add some streamers, and they contacted me and they wanted a video, and I was like, I got the perfect video for you.
Nice. That's cool. You said this was in Sweden?
Yes.
Have you been able to go and like see the
I want to go. It gives me I guess a reason to travel more internationally, especially over in Europe. I don't think I've been to Europe yet. No, I actually haven't been to Europe at all. Maybe I've been in Leipzig at the airport for like a couple hours when I was in the military. And we're stuck in the airport for like 24 hours before we actually went over to the Middle East and everything. But yeah, I definitely want to go over to Europe and check it out. Traveling as a person with a disability, I'm a quadriplegic for those who haven't clearly seen over in the video trailer and everything. Full-time wheelchair user, and traveling is kind of it presents a little bit of a challenge. Not an impossible challenge, something that we can't do, but it's just another thing that we have to think about and plan on. And it's not even just like any disability. You want to plan things out.
Totally. Well, and accessibility like means so many different things to so many different people. So like that And I have friends who are wheelchair users that like flying can be a nightmare depending on like the airline, right? Have you experienced
It
anything
is
that way?
scary. It is
Yeah.
so scary just seeing the statistics of damaged wheelchairs
Yes.
on these flights. And the thing is, it's really, and I've come to learn because I've done a lot of traveling, the past couple years, especially before, 2020. Um, there was like, I found that it's not really the airlines, it's the airports. The people,
Interesting.
so the airlines contract people to handle luggage and equipment away from like the actual like the plane. Like the people at the airline, they just deal with just the plane getting there, and then the people, for their company. But then the people who work at the airport are the ones that are actually handling the wheelchairs, that are actually handling, doing the disability assistance, for from going from one spot to another spot. Um, it's a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be,
That's
just like
interesting.
disillusion.
It totally makes
But
sense now that you say it. I would have never thought about that though.
yeah, and so that's why you feel like some airports seem to do a better job.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of sometimes I like flying rather to go to O'Hare, or I'd rather go to, Orlando sometimes, or, the major airports, usually are supposed to have better assistance and
Right.
accommodations. But you can't always trust that.
Totally.
And it's all about trying to be um, proactive at your planning and making sure that the things are set in place as much as you can, because yeah, there's outside factors of, even though you do plan, stuff
Sure.
happens, and that's when I guess it comes back to contingencies,
Yeah.
always having a backup plan. And
Yeah.
I think that's just something, over the years of having a disability, or at least when being a quadriplegic, has taught me that, backup plans upon backup plans. And maybe that's partial on military experience, but it's definitely something that definitely needs to be in your thought process.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks because you shouldn't have to, right? But it sounds to me like it's like recognition of like this is what I need in order to like survive and thrive. So I have
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. Take me back to, do you remember your first stream?
Yes.
When was that?
It was during the beta of Overwatch 1. So 2016,
Wow,
I
you've been
think
streaming a
about.
long time.
Yeah, but the evolution of the stream has been pretty vast.
Okay.
When we're talking about when I first hit that live button, I just received a controller. It was an adaptive controller, not the Xbox adaptive controller. That came out in 2018, but around 2016 is I decided to buy an adaptive controller that was online. Specifically, the company is Blue Tip Gaming. It was kind of like, it looks like an arcade stick that had like
Okay.
two joysticks and an array of buttons and stuff. Uh, and that was for the Xbox One. And it was interesting with that because it was kind of Frankenstein together in a sense. There's PCBs, for those who don't know. Those are like the chips that you use that are inside the controllers that all the buttons are basically connected to, and that basically sends that signal to the console. Well, that little PCB was actually from another controller, like a PlayStation 2. So then you had that connected to another adapter, which that adapter was connected to another adapter. And yeah, while it did work with firmware updates and all kinds of constant updates, it would have a miscommunication on the controller, and the controller would just stop working
God.
because it's a third party product, and it's
Right.
not, officially supported by something like Xbox. And that was kind of like the start of it. And I didn't have a PC or anything. I had a gaming laptop, but I didn't know about, using a capture card and all that stuff.
Right.
I thought I was like, oh, I could just go live, as a Twitch app on the Xbox, dashboard. I could
Yep.
just do that. And it was kind of funny too, because, I had the big old TV, but then it would take out like maybe a third of the screen for just the chat.
Okay.
And, of course, that I didn't have anything of just like, I just hit the live button, just started streaming. And so,
Sure.
there wasn't that community, that initial community that you have for people that know that you're going to be online or anything. That's another thing that we could talk about too, is like hitting the live button and going, streaming to nobody. Or at
Yeah.
least, that's just, or not even knowing what to kind of do, once you just hit the stream button. That streaming is, there's a lot of like background stuff, involved with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Overwatch, the beta,
Okay.
and yeah, I streamed that, and I think, did I have a mic? I had my headset, and I believe, yeah, people could hear me, but I didn't have a webcam, because
Okay.
at the
I was gonna
time
ask. Yeah.
they didn't have the webcam capability that you could connect your webcam to the console. And I think that didn't really happen until like the later updates, that you can like actually connect the webcam and then stream with the webcam just through your console.
Right. Okay. Because I've heard people talk about streaming from their PlayStations and doing that. It's the same kind
Yeah,
of
and
thing,
I've seen
right?
that, and I've seen a lot of successful streamers that just stream straight from their PlayStation, and you could
Yeah.
see that they're clearly streaming from the PlayStation on just the way the format looks like.
Right.
When they go live, whether it's on Twitch or Mixer at the time, for those who
Right.
remember
So
Mixer.
wait, were you on when you streamed the first time? Was it Mixer or was it Twitch?
It was actually on Twitch,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then I found out about Mixer when I found out about the Xbox Adaptive Controller.
Okay. Okay.
And so when before, this is probably about 2017, and Mixer was kind of new, and I actually met one of the community managers for accessibility for Mixer, and I was like, oh, I gotta try this. It's like I'm here with meeting Microsoft and Xbox, and now they're coming out the new streaming platform. I was like, oh, this it feels like the stars are aligning type of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is gonna be it. And then I did Mixer. I did you're familiar with Restream. I don't know if anybody else is.
Yeah, I think
So
so. Can you
yeah,
explain it a little
yeah,
bit?
Restream, you can stream to multiple platforms. It just sends one signal out to all these other stream keys. So at the time, I was able to stream to Twitch, Mixer, Facebook, and YouTube. And I think at one time, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Periscope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I used to do a lot of like just phone, mobile lives that go on Periscope just
That's
to hang out
great.
with people. Um, Periscope was cool, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was interesting on with Mixer. So
So
I'm sad that it went away.
I know all of these. Well, we were just talking about like threads and Twitter and all of these different things. It's interesting. Right now, you've got like Kick coming up in terms of another like streaming thing. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
interesting. These different platforms that kind of come and go, and like which ones actually have like staying power, you know?
exactly. It's interesting, and I think if we want to talk a little bit of advice for anybody that was considering streaming, definitely try every single platform that's available out there. Everybody, we were talking about algorithms before,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
there's different communities, and there's different, um, I don't know, like your content will do better in different platforms depending on what you do,
Yeah.
especially if you're a visual person, or if you're a person that likes to talk about education, educational type of videos with like setups and how-tos, stuff like that, or even IRL, content, where people do vlogs or anything like that. That does more. I feel like it does better over in like YouTube, and versus trying to do that on like, I don't know, TikTok or even Instagram.
Yeah.
Having vlogs.
Well, it's interesting. There's like two kind of different levels that we're talking about that I find fascinating, where it's like, because for me, it's like there are certain platforms that I'm like, I really dig this. This makes sense for me. Like Instagram is one, I'm very visual. Pictures make sense. Like I get it. So Instagram is one that always just kind of like clicked with me. But that
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean that the content I'm making will do well on that platform, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's interesting in terms of trying to figure out kind of like what feels good for you, and then also what level of like strategy do you want to actually employ when we're talking about making content and putting it out there.
Right. I think it's definitely, I would do what's that technique called? The spaghetti on the wall technique
Okay, yeah.
type of thing, where, especially when you're starting out, um, there's a lot of things that one person should do. I think the biggest thing is finding your niche. Once you find your niche, that'll kind of point you in the right direction on where you want to create your content, or where you feel your content's going to do well in, and you're able to, reach as many people with it.
So kind of a big question, but how do you find your niche? How did you find your niche?
I actually did something. I took a course. There's a, content creator. Her name is Ashni Christ, and I've met her, not met her, but I found her content on YouTube, and it was all about streaming. It was tips, and this is what you can do. Here are some strategies for everything. And it was one of those things that I would just be I would have in the background, and I would just hear it, and I kind of just fine tune, my own content to it. And one of the things that stuck out for me is finding that niche. And I was like, so how do I find that niche? You kind of break it down of, the things that you like. Let's say horror games and first person shooter games. These are the things that you like. Well, what specifically with me is different from any other content creator? And it's a little bit easy. I felt like it was a little bit easier for me because I have a visible disability, and just, something, whether it's disability or whether it's like the culture that you grew up in. It's kind of, you're promoting yourself, right? Why are you unique compared to everybody? And it's not like trying to say, why you're better than it. It's never been that. It's always been showcasing you, you know and you, and I don't like really saying like the whole, I guess it's more of a joke and a meme, but the whole snowflake thing is like,
Yeah.
you're unique, right? Everybody is completely unique, and there is something that you have that people in, quote unquote, would like to consume, and they'll have benefit from.
Yeah.
I guess what's specifically talking with me is, I'm a quadriplegic. I was also a vet, you know, um, Asian American. Uh, I'm adopted. I mean, there's all like specific things, that I can grab, and that's kind of like part of my niche. And I think it really mostly the most prominent thing with, that I at least promote is, my spinal cord injury, being quadriplegic, and gaming, and advocating to get other people to game, no matter their disability, and it doesn't have to be Xbox. I'm an Xbox, fanboy.
It does, guys. We're sponsored by Xbox today, okay?
So yeah.
No, that's great.
Uh,
I think that's really fascinating, this idea of like, so obviously like everyone has a unique point of view, and I think the more authentically you share who you are, the more people are going to gravitate to that like either have similar experiences or in some way like relate to that. I
yes.
also wonder how much burden that puts on someone like you, as far as like being disabled and having a visible disability. Like, does it feel like there's pressure to show up in a certain way because you're representing that voice, I guess?
At one time, I did, because you want to. at one point I really wanted to be like inspiration for people. Um, and then it slowly shifted to where, I don't really want people to. I like, if people are inspired by the things that I do, I'm okay with that. But I don't want it to be like the cause of like me, I guess, doing my daily things.
Right.
It's like it's just me. I'll go to a store or something like that. At least for me, I don't see that as like inspiration. Like, oh, you're out there
Right.
despite your disability. Oh, you can drive yourself, and like, oh, that's amazing. I, I've it's shifted to being more of a peer mentor.
Okay.
Um, and breaking down that niche, it's like I want to specifically help people who also have motor disabilities, or if we're going to just break it down even like to niche, motor disabilities, to be a peer mentor for them, to guide them to their independence, as much independence as they can gain. you know um I've gotten to the point where I'm always like saying like I'm not better than anybody. I just want to have people be as good as me or even better than me. That's how I kind of like
Yeah.
have that mentality.
Yeah. Well, and I love the word peer because to me it implicates this idea of like I have something to share with you as a peer and you have something to share with me too, right? So
Exactly.
there's something really powerful about that like this kind of power dynamic that you're talking about of like, oh, I'm better, I have more experience. It's like, no, like we each have different experience that when we pool it together, that can like help us grow, you know?
Yeah, and one of the slogans that I've always had, especially it's with gaming, is when everyone can game, we all win.
Yeah. I love that.
And so if I can do that, it doesn't matter if my name, if I was the one responsible for it. I just want it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like you said, it's like I think something that is really key here for anyone is like whether it's not like there's a goal of being inspiring. Just by living your life, people will or will not be inspired, and that's not really up to you either, you know?
Right.
So I think there's something like to be said about, especially in this like content creator streaming space, there's something to be said about just showing up and being you that is really powerful. And I think it's cool too, people that like put on a very specific character. It's just these are two different things we're talking about, you know?
Yeah, I mean that could get exhausting too.
Yeah.
Putting on a quote, quote unquote, a character. It's though. Is it genuine at the end?
Yeah.
It's you don't want to appear or be fake to somebody unless that's
Right.
kind of like your intention, like you are a persona, like this is your persona. Like I feel like people who do like VTubing, I feel like they can allow themselves to be more, have a certain type of persona or like at least a character,
Yeah.
versus like if we're doing IRL streaming, this is me. I'm gonna
Right.
be, you're gonna see all my emotions.
Yeah. Well, you know what's fascinating? Having talked to quite a few VTubers now, and I'm sure that's true, but also I've heard the experience of quite the opposite, where it's like, because I have a VTuber, I am comfortable to be free in who I am.
That's cool.
Right?
That's really cool.
It's
I
really
think that's
interesting.
I'm definitely interested because at one point I wanted to do something like that
Yeah.
because there have been some points where it's like I guess you call it body dysmorphia, where you just don't feel like presenting yourself to the world
Totally.
like that, but you can have like quote unquote like an avatar
Yeah.
that is representative of you, but then it's still you in that sense.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a fine line to it,
Yeah.
but I think VTubing is actually kind of cool. It's like, wow, just how people just really pop off when like when I see some of these VTubers, it's like, wow, you guys, you're making a lot of cool content out there. And
Yeah.
VTubing is not cheap too. I'll tell you
No.
that. It is not cheap.
Like, I mean, it's interesting because your rig can be like anywhere from like, super, super simplistic to then we're getting into like literally thousands of dollars depending, right? So
Gosh,
it's
yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, the VTubing community is fascinating. I recently made a ping tuber, which is much more simple. It's all just like still shots, right? But there's something, and everyone's relationship to it is different, obviously, but for me there is something nice about like I can just like lay back. I don't need to turn on the lights and the camera. I can just like chill, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think for some people it is probably a persona thing, like what you're talking about, where it's like, okay, I'm playing this character today, and that might be fulfilling to them. There's like an element of kind of like acting that I can see being,
Exactly.
appealing for some people too.
And I think that's probably what I would do a little bit too. Like say if I do go over to another platform and just start out there, it might be very like character like depending on what my avatar would look like.
Yeah,
And I think I would still probably have an avatar that is a wheelchair user,
yeah,
that would still be a quadriplegic. Um, like at least with having like a stream avatar, I don't know if at least for me, if I would have somebody that's I guess more able-bodied presenting.
yeah, definitely. Well, and you recently came out with new merch, and I noticed like you said, I won't quote your tagline because you can do it, but you had a really interesting kind of like perspective on it. Can you talk a little bit about your merch and kind of your
Yeah,
yeah.
actually. So I had the artist for my emotes. She's one of my main artists, Art by Dgar. Shout outs to Dgar. Um, I went to her and I was like, hey, do you draw anime? And she was like, just the whole flabbergasted, like, what are you talking? I love anime. And so I presented her the idea is that there's a lack of representation for, I would say main characters. Um, Usually characters that you would see that have disabilities, at least wheelchair users, there's a lack of
Yeah,
representation. Um,
especially in VTube world, like it's
oh
very like
yeah.
white anime girl, right? Like able-bodied.
Yeah.
Like it is, which is
Yeah.
interesting. Not to interrupt, but yeah.
No, yeah. I think that goes on to like the whole fair skin versus dark skin type of
Yeah.
that has been, I think, just a cultural thing, a world culture thing for millennia. Um, but yeah, I think it's while that's kind of like the biggest thing. Yeah, I would probably have something that wouldn't be as common, like finding your niche again.
Yeah.
How are
Yeah.
you going to separate yourself from all these other VTubers? And
Right.
that's another thing. So that's what probably reason why I would probably have somebody that would have be a wheelchair user, most likely quadriplegic. But with the VTubing, I can add more, like I did with the merch. So I guess the line of the merch is called Cyber Quad, and it's very cyberpunk inspired. The character is a version of me in the cyberpunk world that more instead of physically enhancing myself, I'm more about enhanced my brain
Okay.
in this sense. And the whole cool thing about with I guess CyberQuad is um, the whole underlying of gaining access to anything.
Yeah.
Because even though if a world isn't accessible in that way, CyberQuad is able to gain access at least through technology. Um, and if you look at the character, he has like a band-aid over, and then when he takes off the band-aid, you see a third eye, and so that's kind
Love
of like
it.
for computer people, overclocking. That's what I call it, overclocking. And so it's like the maximum effort of just me being able to be omnipresent in all of technology everywhere all at once type of situation. And then on that picture that you can see my service dog Pixie on
Yeah.
there. We decided to give her kind of like rocket boots in a sense. I don't know if you're familiar with Rush, who is Mega Man's dog.
Oh
It's
no, I'm
kind of like
not.
a robotic. I believe it's a Rush. You know, chat, correct me if I'm wrong, and scold me if I'm wrong. But Rush is his dog, and I want to give the concept of, you know, also gaining access. That even though if something is inaccessible, as in, you know, heights and stuff like that, you know, Pixie is still able to get access to it because she has these rocket boosters to go anywhere, you know, gain access to any part of, you know, the the landscape, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I love it.
So that's kind of like the start of it. I kind of want to expand a little bit more. It'd be cool if there's like little mini comics or anything like that,
Yeah,
of it, because, you know, I want to see more of that representation, because, you know, the when I think of the major like piece like characters that represent people who use wheelchairs, first one comes in my mind is Professor
I
Xavier.
was literally, yep, that's the first one. Yep.
You know, or for those, you know, some people don't know as much, but Oracle, who is
Mm-hmm.
Batgirl, when she got shot by the Joker and was paralyzed. And then they pulled the I guess DC magic of you know, Wayne Tech, Bruce Wayne Tech, to give her like this basically cyberware to wear, to where, you know, it cures her of her paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
um but then with I think Professor X, you know, he had more he was more of like a mentor. You know, he wasn't really like the person out there doing the missions and stuff like that, where you see like Cyclops. I mean, Cyclops technically, I don't know if you wanted to say that he technically has a disability in a sense, because I mean, even though he's not blind, he has to wear certain things in order to his powers to not be, you know, he has to have his eyes closed if he doesn't have special lights glasses on.
Right,
I don't
right.
know if that would be something on there. Rogue, I mean, she can't like physically touch anybody unless she has like, you know, gloves on or something like that.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
just getting more deeper into that. But I guess more about wheelchair characters, there's very few, and the ones that are out there, you know, they're either kind of like background characters or characters that are kind of like the, I would maybe like brains of the operation, not really of like
Mm,
the person that's out there doing stuff.
right, right. So yeah, having someone that's like front and center and it like is the story, I think is like
Hmm.
really important. And like you said, like I think that like in terms of our cultural understanding, like beyond Professor X, I think for most people, it's like you're really reaching for characters at that point, right?
Exactly. I
Like,
had to Google characters,
yeah,
you know, and even in anime, it seems like everybody in anime is able-bodied.
yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
true.
there are a couple characters that, you know, are wheelchair users, but you know that you would have to really research, you know,
Yeah,
to get something. There isn't anything prominent to where it'd be like, oh, Professor X, you know.
right,
And
right.
then that's the first thing everybody's, oh, you're gonna be Professor X for
How
Comic
many
Con or something.
Halloweens do I need to be Professor X? Give me something else.
You know, I'm kind of glad though that, you know, they had like the newer version of Professor X, because like
Yeah,
I don't know if I wanted to be bald for any of my cosplays.
that's
So.
fair. You could be young Professor X. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, Bran in Game of Thrones. You know, that's another one
Mm-hmm.
too. You know, it's
Yep,
like
yep.
I am the three-eyed raven.
That's yeah. The Oracle, the Eye. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, so going back real quick, I love this. This was great. So Overwatch beta comes out. What
Mhm.
inspired you in that moment to like set up everything and be like, you know what, I want to try streaming? What was like your thought process?
I think it was before that.
Okay.
It was the fact that I was going on YouTube and searching keywords like quadriplegic gaming, and there's maybe 2 or 3 videos out there,
Mm-hmm.
and there are grainy videos. You know, we're thinking about like 10 years ago. You know, the quality of videos and the content of quality of content is risen exponentially. You know, and I was like, for me in my infancy is just, how am I going to do all this stuff? And I, uh, I don't know. I think it was just one of those things. It was just I just hit the light switch and said, "This is what I want to do." I like playing video games. I want to show people that I play video games. When I actually met one of my best friends on the Overwatch beta,
Okay.
it was actually through a Facebook group that I happened to find, and he happened to live in the same city that I was in
Wow.
Colorado Springs at the time, and so we met
Colorado
up.
connection. I didn't even
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and so yeah, when I saw that you were over in town, I was like, "What the heck? How come I haven't
Wait,
met
are
you
you
yet?"
still in Colorado?
I'm not. I'm
Oh,
actually
okay.
in Florida right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
we moved. I moved over to Florida. So, but yeah, it was interesting that when I was playing with my friend, Healthy Poison is his online name, and Healthy didn't know I was a quadriplegic. And so, and that wasn't, I think that was one of the things too, is that I wanted to play with people and get to know people before, saying, "Hey, I'm a quadriplegic." I didn't want that to be, at least at the time, something that I guess that this is the forefront of me versus getting to know me personally,
Right.
because usually when, like, that's a visual thing. People see people, and they I guess they would like make more of assumptions on, capabilities and stuff like
Sure.
that, versus getting to know somebody and then learning about their disability and stuff like.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting, yeah. And so when you found out that I was a quadriplegic, I was like, okay, maybe I can use this as content for future, meeting people in the future. Is that, I'll go and play video games, and then they'll find out that I'm, a quadriplegic, and
Yeah.
especially if I happen to defeat them in a 1v1 match, or stuff like that. And there's a game called Darwin Project, which kind of helped, I guess, boost my platform a little bit, because there's proximity chat. And Darwin Project is a battle royale, but there's only like 10 players in the whole map.
Okay.
And so you get a lot of, like, communicating. There's a lot of interaction with people, and people trash talk and all that stuff. And it was really fun. And then I'll like fight them, and they'll either complain about something or not. And I'll be like, "Hey man, come check me out on my Twitch channel real quick." And then that kind of started from there, because a lot of the community from that game, when it was alive at the time, kind of shifted over, and that's like one of like core communities that I've had
Nice.
um, throughout my career, is like people that I known from Darwin Project that didn't know that I was a quadriplegic, and then now they're like, "Oh, did you know about this guy?" And it's kind of, I guess, a grassroots advertisement promotion
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
more of a word of mouth. I didn't really do any posting online. I didn't, at least at the time, I wasn't, I guess, dialed in on my content as I feel like I am now, to where it's like, I guess you could say, imposter syndrome, to where
Sure.
my content is deserving to being posted.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, there's so many levels to it where it's like, okay, searching for quadriplegic gamers and not finding anyone, or finding like very few, and being like, okay,
Yeah.
I need this space, so I'm gonna create this space because other people probably need it too, but I need it. But then also this kind of idea of like, I want to beat you at this game and then tell you I'm quadriplegic. Like, there's
Yeah.
something about that I very much dig. Like, that's that's great. What kind of games do you tend to play? What games are you into?
I like the competitive games. So Overwatch, so like first person shooters.
Okay.
I thought Overwatch is really cool for the fact that it was a team shooter, and that you can have different classes. Your support class, tank class, and then your DPS. And at the time, I was still getting used to just learning how to play video games again, with
Yeah.
a disability and like my limited hand movement. And so I was able to pick characters in that game and still be efficient. I didn't have to
be like the person that's the run and gun and the sniper and all that stuff. I found out that a support class that you could be a healer and it's gonna help the team so much. And I became a good healer, or I became like a pretty decent tank. And that's where I found that first person shooters, or at least like those team-based shooters, was a start. And then I was playing Call of Duty, at the time, before that adaptive controller came out, and before I started streaming. One of the first couple games that I got back into was Borderlands 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
Okay.
So those were the games that I was playing, and I was like, okay, I want to get better and better at this. And I started gravitating more, to playing first person shooters, and kind of games that are challenging, to where almost to the point where it's like, can this person play the game? Like at the difficulty point, not really
Right.
at an access point, because that's another conversation.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Like, so what is the difference for you between the challenging, I forget how you just phrased it, but like versus something that is an access point, like challenge point versus access point? What does that look like to you?
I think, let's see, a good example I think would be Elden Ring.
Yeah. Okay.
Elden Ring's, I feel like, a good example of it is it's accessible to people because the whether the control schemes or just the way that you play, and like people who don't even play those types of games can like play these types of games. Like having that access is like it's different versus like the game, because the game's hard.
Right.
The game is hard.
Right.
I mean, it's relentless and everything, and I like that challenge. I did not. I will be honest. I did not beat the game.
Fair.
I did rage quit at that game because
I haven't even tried it yet. If it makes you feel better.
Souls-like games are probably. I think it's like my patience runs dry in those types of games.
Understandable. Yeah, you're not the only one.
So yeah, but it's still a game that it's able to, like, anybody could play because of either whether it's the controls or you can level yourself up to a point where you're fairly strong, and take your time in certain areas. You don't have to take on a certain challenge if you don't want to at that time. You can actually circumvent a lot of things in that game.
I was gonna say, especially with it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first Souls game that is open world, right?
Yeah.
So you can really choose, like, if this area is too hard, I'll go somewhere else. Like,
right.
So that to
and
me is...
you can find yourself in like lower areas or harder areas, and and to think of like the quote unquote consider like the named bosses or the named characters, which are I guess considered bosses, you can actually circumvent those. I think most of them. I think there's like maybe a couple of them that you have to fight. Like you have to fight in order to quote unquote beat the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can just go around and level up in a certain spot, and then you'll find that it's a little bit easier to, take on a challenge that you felt was like harder.
Yeah.
You're actually giving yourself better access to stuff.
Totally. Yeah. Are there games that you found are not accessible with the adaptive controller?
So I mostly play on console, and I feel like that any game that comes out on console is pretty accessible to me. With the person with a motor disability. With the Xbox adaptive controller, I can configure the layout. I can switch the buttons to make the A button interact as the Y button and vice versa, or switch my triggers and stuff like that. I can configure the controller to make it work for me.
Okay.
I think that's one of the biggest like things I like about the Xbox adaptive controller. What was the question again?
Just games that are not accessible with the adaptive
for
controller.
games that aren't accessible, yeah. The ones
I don't know, because I've gotten to a point where I want to figure out how to play a game, even though it wasn't specifically built with accessibility in mind.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm trying to think of like a game that was like absolutely horrible at. Unfortunately, there are like some games that are developed from independent developers.
Mm,
Um, accessibility in the sense of like maybe switching buttons or adding things like toggle versus hold.
yeah.
Like say if you have to grab an object, a lot of like a lot of games that I've seen, you have to grab an object, and sometimes you have to press and hold a button in order to grab it, and then you drag it, and then you can let go of the button, and it does that. A game that doesn't have like toggle grab in a sense, if that's what it's called, I can just press the button and it grabs, and then I don't even have to hold the button. It's still grabbing, and then I could press the button again. I wouldn't say anything specifically on like any specific games, but I would say games that have tend to not have as much accessibility are usually games with smaller development
Yeah.
teams that are more independent. And those sometimes are the games that I'm less critical about,
Sure.
because learning that what goes into game development is incredible.
Yeah.
It is really incredible on like what people have to do in order to make a certain game or to make a certain function work.
Yeah.
But it's still something that I'm not gonna ease off on.
Sure.
I'll still be more cordial about it. Like the AAA title games, I feel like have no excuse.
Totally.
Have
Yeah.
no excuse when you're talking about the funding and the amount of people that are on the team, especially when you look at the credits. There's a lot of people that work on this game.
Yeah.
And you're telling
Absolutely.
me that you couldn't add certain accessibility features on there? I think you just either overlooked it or, didn't really care,
Yeah. Totally.
honestly.
Yep. No, that makes sense. I would totally be just in general more critical of companies that have that much backing and that much funding, because it's like, what did you do with that?
Yeah.
Like that, like at that point it's almost a deliberate choice to not include accessibility features rather than like an indie developer that like may not have, I don't know.
The time
Yeah.
for it, and it's not saying that they aren't considering it, but sometimes like the publishers are really the bad guys because they're not allowing developers to create a game, at the pace that's needed versus the pace that's wanted.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. When you first started your stream versus what your stream is like now, what has been the kind of like evolution of your stream? What has changed?
I would definitely say the tech setup with using a PC. When I first started, it was just through the console,
Uh-huh.
and then I had a laptop that was happened to be a gaming laptop, um, and I got a capture card, and then so I was streaming 720p, 30 frames, um, and like the quality, it's okay, it's a workable quality. But then I think it was just the evolution of just once I got one thing down, it's like, okay, maybe I want to invest in having a slightly better camera,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, or even a microphone. This is actually my first time having an XLR setup.
Yeah.
It's not completely fine tuned, but I feel like the quality is already better than what I've had before. Um, I think it's really the latency part that really gets me excited for the XLR setup. Um, just like we were talking about earlier, it's just sometimes I'll sing along to certain songs, and it sounds so completely off on the other end, like I'm a half second off. It's like, oh, this person has horrible timing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I want to hear them do it in any karaoke. So, yeah, I think the evolution of is like the lighting. Um, when I started, looking up more YouTube videos on, improving my stream setup versus, just not the content part, because I feel like the content is one thing and now your setup's another thing.
Totally.
Because you can have amazing content and have a horrible setup and still be ultra successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you can have an amazing $20,000 setup and not be successful at all.
Yep. Yep.
So both of the things do coincide. So I felt like at one point, my content was where it was at. I found my niche. I found, what I wanted to stream, and I was like, okay, now let me improve my quality of content. Let me have better pictures, better audio, just the better internet. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I invested in a better internet in order to upload better quality videos and
Yeah.
not have to take, especially when you're uploading a 1080p video and it takes you over an hour to
Like
upload,
hours. Yeah.
yeah. I guess people, for those who don't understand that when you get internet chat, please ask what your upload is. The download can be whatever it is because it's going to be sufficient enough on your download. But if you're streaming and you're trying to stream 1080p or like high capacity like videos and you want to upload on YouTube, look at your upload speed. Ask what your upload speed is.
Yeah.
If you have 10 megabits and up, I would say that's pretty good. If you could get it up to 20 and up, I think that'll help a lot. And then if you could do like the gig up, gig down, that's probably the most efficient.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody is really, if you have that available, that's like fiber.
Right.
That'll help the content a lot. And I was upgrading my internet. I upgraded my internet because I was doing a conference, the Ability Summit conference for Microsoft. And so Ability Summit conference is about showcasing um, the strides and the just celebrating accessibility of what Xbox or Microsoft has done as a whole. And they're like, oh, is there any way that get like this minimum of upload speed, because it'll help with like the bit rate for when for the feed and everything. And yeah, and so I just started slowly upgrading certain things. I didn't really do it all at once.
Yeah.
A lot of the upgrades were little by little, whether it's like,
Yeah.
all right, I got a new mic. Okay, I got a new webcam. Okay, oh, I got one light. Now I'm adding another light,
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, now since like with this whole brand new setup and after moving, I did invest into a new PC.
Nice.
So I'm at a single PC setup, and I feel like it's probably slightly overkill, but I think it's gonna last me a while,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
And then I got partnered with Elgato, so that's why I have all this awesome Elgato equipment, to upgrade
Congratulations.
everything. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think what you said about, um improving things piece by piece, like that's so much more realistic. I think there are people out there that are like, I'm going to stream, and if they have the money, they're going to like buy the whole kit, and like
All right.
good for you, man, but like I don't think that's realistic for most people, and I don't know if that's like a good way to go about it. I think this distinction that you made between, technological upgrades and then also your content, like I think that's a really big distinction that a lot of people don't really think about. It's not
Right.
just you going live and playing a video game. There's a lot more that goes into it than that.
Yes, because if you just go live and you just play video games, you're only going to attract a certain audience, maybe lurkers or people that maybe they're just there to watch. And there's one, like, I think it was like 3 things that you can look for when you're creating your content that people look for. You're either really good at a game, you're really entertaining, or you're educational. I found that those are kind of like the 3 major things that if you want to like break down, like, all right, let me break, when you're finding your niche, where do you fall into these categories? And then use that,
Yeah.
and then that'll help guide you.
Yeah, that's interesting. What kind of people do find your streams?
I think people who also have a disability, um, most likely like a motor disability, whether it's quadriplegia or SMA or cerebral palsy. Um, and it's from posting in other platforms. I think Twitter, the Twitter/thread type of platforms have helped a lot, because you can have conversations first.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what the whole point of these platforms is. It's just like to have people when you post something and then people create conversations. A thread or a forum. It's like a live forum that people can. It's like a volatile forum when you think of it that versus like Reddit.
Yeah.
They're kind of similar, but Reddit is more. It's I guess like a live service in a sense, that it constantly gets updated, or there's a source that you go to and then you can see everything that happened, versus with Twitter, it's like you do that, you set out something, or you start the thread or you start the tweet, and then you can have like the responses and like that whole thread there, but it doesn't usually stay. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like
Yeah. It
it
doesn't have a permanence to it. It's very
right,
temporary,
there you go,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. And if you look at something like a Discord, that's so much more contained, I think, than something like Reddit in some ways. I don't know. Are you a Discord guy at all?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely I'm not too crazy on keeping it active, at least my Discord.
Yeah.
Um I do find that once I can bring I'm able to reach to my community, that's like the more active. I feel like Discord is where you're really active community members are usually at.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Because it's a little bit more personal. It's not as formal, I guess you would say. It's just very super casual, and you could just have all kinds of like conversations all over the place if you wanted to. So
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. We were talking about this a little bit before, but because there's so many options. You've got Twitter and Reddit and Threads and Instagram and like all these different things and Discord. Like, how do you how do you choose where to spend your time and your energy with regard to like promotion and sharing your stream with people?
I I think I just use a couple. Let's see. I use Twitter is probably the biggest promotion tool that I use for people who I don't personally know.
Okay.
Um, I do post some stuff on like Facebook, and Facebook is usually people that I've met IRL or if I've met before the whole streaming career stuff, and it's
Right.
like, hey, this is what I'm doing now, and then people will come in from that. But I feel like Twitter, Instagram, honestly, probably not as much, even though I still post on there. Um, I think if I start doing more lifestyle content, because I don't think my gaming content really pops off on Instagram,
Yeah.
where, like gaming clips and stuff like that. I think more of like adventures, outdoor stuff, touching grass type of activities, content that like that does well with me better on Instagram.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for you, so starting in 2016, I think you said, right?
Yes.
So you're an affiliate now, but at
Mhm.
that time, the affiliate program, partner program didn't even exist, did it?
I'm not too sure, like on when it did exist. Like I think it probably did, and I don't know if I was like too concerned about it,
Okay.
because I when I was like, all right, I want to get my affiliate, path to affiliate and everything. I think that was like probably 2018. I'm not too sure on like when I actually got my like affiliate status, because I wasn't promoting, my streams at the time, and it was a struggle trying to get 3 people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and especially when you're not in other communities. I wasn't in other Twitch communities where I'm like having conversations and getting to know people. I think if you want to, that'll help a lot. I think especially, and there's that fine line, of like self promoting and in another
Yeah.
person's community. There are ways to go about it. I think is just having that genuine conversation of just at one point maybe you're thinking about playing a game or something like that, and usually depending on the streamer, the streamer would usually ask, oh, do you stream too? That's something that I usually ask, because it doesn't hurt me to just to promote somebody else
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I feel like are pretty cool initially, especially first impression type of thing.
Yeah.
Or even just to be like, hey, I'll check you out, and then do a shout out, because I'll do shout outs on my stream, and sometimes it'll pop up a clip,
Okay. Yeah.
and then I'll be like, oh, you play this game too, I'm gonna hit you with a follow, or it allows me to kind of just to boost their platform a little bit,
Yeah.
especially if people come in with a really cool vibe, pass the vibe check
Right.
in
Right.
that
Right.
sense,
Right.
and then it doesn't like pain me to promote them for that 5 seconds,
Totally.
you know.
Yeah. I think that's like a big like misunderstanding, or maybe something that is detrimental to some people, is kind of going into streaming with this kind of scarcity mindset, this idea of like there's a finite amount of people that could possibly be watching at any time, therefore these are my people and they can't go to other people. It's like
Right.
that's not how it works, And I think the more that people do that, the more they're actually doing themselves a disservice, because it's just not the way it
100%.
is. Yeah.
100% agree. We're talking about billions of people.
Yeah. Literally.
And then I don't know how many people who have access to the internet. We're talking about billions of people. Um, I had one of my buddies. He was actually in your chat, Ace Gaming.
Yeah.
He always says there's enough for everyone to eat.
Yeah.
So meaning that, like you're talking about, there isn't that finite amount of people to where it's like they're going to only dedicate to one person. You can bring in other communities together, and then I feel like that's just bringing more awareness, especially to what you're wanting to promote.
Yeah.
Mine's very focused on advocacy for accessibility in gaming,
Right.
and people who have quadriplegia, and motor disabilities, also promoting and accessibility with like Xbox and just gaming. And you can see it on my Twitter that I'm pretty, I get fairly adamant, when there's accessibility injustices going on. Big example, there's a guy that I know, his name is Brawly Legs, and um, he competed over at Evo, which is the largest fighting game tournament event in the world, that happened over in Vegas, and Vegas of all places. And people have opportunities to compete on stage, but there were no ramps.
Oof.
So I was like, man, it's outrageous that it would happen. And we're thinking 2023, we're thinking Vegas of all places,
Yeah.
that wants to bring people most likely who have a disability, or who use walkers, who use scooters. We're talking about, you want to bring people to make money, right? So why exclude people
Yep.
that, I bring it down to that point of a business. If I want to talk to any business or any developer, or and stress why accessibility is so important,
Yeah.
it's because it's going to make them money.
Yeah.
It'll make them money in the end. And if
Absolutely.
money talks, and if it finds that they're able to make money off of it, then that's probably the best way to initially engage a company.
Yeah.
Thankfully, There's other companies, I going back onto Microsoft. Um, they made accessibility, inclusive design one of the pillars of their company. So instead of taking the approach to that is going to make them money, they took the approach that it's going to gain them morality, wealth.
Yeah.
That this company is actually looking into giving access to anyone to use their products. In the end, it's just getting more customers.
Yeah. It's
But I
true.
mean, they've gotten to the point where it's more because I don't think they've made money. I think they lost money with the Xbox adaptive controller. I think it was going to be a project that was going to be, it wasn't going to happen at one point. And I think it took the media and the team, the inclusive technology, the inclusive tech lab team and accessibility team over at Microsoft and Xbox to show that this is something that's going to have long lasting positive effects
Yeah.
for the company.
Yeah.
And we've seen it like ever since. Honestly, I feel like at starting with the Xbox adaptive controller, for me seeing it and being in the beta program, everything that Xbox or Microsoft has been doing has been there's you could see that there's a touch of accessibility or inclusive design put into that product.
Yeah.
um, the boxes, like physical boxes for like controllers and like the consoles, actually changed because they decided to change the Xbox adaptive controller to make it more accessible for like a person like me to get just to open the box.
Which is huge. People don't even think
Packaging
about that, I don't think.
and even the shipping packaging, they had loops on like the tape, like the parts of the tape. So I didn't even have to use like a knife or anything to open it up. I could just use the loops and then pull it out, and I was able to gain access and open up this package.
Yeah.
They started doing that with all their products. So
Yeah.
it definitely is needed and is definitely possible to still like have this. I always say morality over money.
Yeah. Yeah.
um because I mean in the end it's going to make you money.
It's true. It's so interesting. It makes me think of Hollywood and the idea of representation. I think that like often there will be a movie coming out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it features marginalized people. It's not going to do well." It's like, "No, you're going to bring in so many marginalized people that actually see themselves now
Yeah,
on screen." That's huge. It's so funny because it's like I feel like a lot of times like kind of capitalist corporate world is like shocked that something that like has good representation does well. It's like, of course it does well. It's
of
something that
course,
we're
yeah.
like craving, you
You're
know?
tapping into a demographic that hasn't been tapped in.
Yeah,
And
right.
then if you even just to show it, it's something that sparks the conversation. And then people see the success in it.
Yeah.
And then they're sad that they weren't the first ones to do it.
I know, right? It's funny. Well, and then you get into, and this is getting us in the weeds, but then you get into this kind of like weird world of like pandering versus like what you're talking about with Microsoft feels like it's very like authentic, like intentional support for disabled folks. Like, but then you get into this weird like I think about Pride Month and like rainbow washing and the kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
bullshit marketing, right? So like
Informative stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
performative stuff. Like, is there anything that you've run into that way, especially with being like a disability advocate?
The I'm gonna call out this game.
Do it. Call them out.
It's a game called GTFO. It's a PC game. It's a really fun game. But there was like the support on it was not. I don't know. I almost got in an argument to where they kind of made this like snide remark when I was tweeting like, why isn't this happening or something like that. And then they made a joke of, I don't know what the joke was, but it set me off to where I was like, okay, these people don't really care that I'm really trying to be serious on this needs to be an option
Right.
for, I think it was just, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was toggle holds. It was something that anybody could have like done that you've seen before. And I pressed them and it was more of a brush off. And then I remember getting a message from them, and I never responded. It was along like kind of like the messages like, oh, we are trying to do this stuff, it's like, oh, and not, the reason why, we would do this because, I've worked with people who also have disability, it's like, it felt like in the sense of like, oh, I have friends who are disabled too,
Right.
and I was like, well, why aren't you actually doing like that's the stuff that's needed to be done? And I went back into the game after like a year after calling them out and doing that, and there still hasn't been any like changes to like their controls and stuff like that. And it was funny because the reason why I called them out is because during the Game Awards. So I was on one of the future class members for the Game Awards for 2019, and I believe they showed my commercial, and then they did the award for I forgot what it was called, innovation and accessibility, for the award, and that was given to Forza Horizon 5. And then after that, GTFO came out, and then he was all the one of the developers talking about, oh, we've made strides for just accessibility and stuff like that. And I was like, really? And so then I went in because I was like, that was one of the games that I played, and I looked on there. I was like, wait, you haven't done anything.
Yep.
Like you don't have, there's no colorblind modes and just like all these other things for visual stuff. I was like, you didn't really do anything for the accessibility. I was like, oh, sometimes people just blatantly lie
Yeah.
about it. Just it's like right on the spot, because that was a live event. And so I was, I did sometimes, I don't need to drag people too much because I feel like sometimes it gets to a point to where I can tell that they're not as serious as I am.
Right.
And
Right.
so I feel like I don't need to spend the time to argue with them or to kind of beat in their heads that this is why we need accessibility and
Right.
why aren't you doing it with your game? And if you want to bring more people into it, then why aren't you trying to make these improvements? Because you can patch it into the game.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for you to have it initially in the foundation of your game. That's what I strive for, is so then you don't have to do patches or anything like that, and that's already in your mindset. But to not even make the effort to add it afterwards, especially being called out, is it's like it shows me that they're not as serious. And so I'd rather move on to companies or people who will listen to our voices.
Totally. It's this classic thing of like, show me, don't tell me. Like, don't tell me that you're doing this like accessibility shit if you're not actually doing it, right? Just
Exactly.
do it, and then I'll find your game and I'll be like, hell yeah, it's beyond infuriating because it's like also this idea of like it's not your job. You're not getting paid to be a consultant to help them create accessible design, right? And
Right.
yet like it's up to people like you to like call people out and be like, hey, you said this is accessible, it's not. You know what
Right.
I mean? It's fucked up.
And I think that brings it to the next step of things. Where are we going on with this?
Yeah.
At least with my content, I'm actually going to start consulting.
Cool.
Become official and
Nice.
say, hey, game companies, you can literally hire me.
Yes.
I've worked with Xbox, literally on the Xbox adaptive controller, still an Xbox partner. I just partner up with another tech company, Elgato and stuff like that. And this is like the content I'm like going for. And, I want to make your game accessible to anybody. I want, and then I can be your motor disability representative and also provide you with other consultants from other spectrums of the disability community to make your game better.
Yeah.
To, just and I always get I always feel like this has to happen and this is going to happen. It's so easy to do it, and I've learned that developing a game is not as that easy as
Sure.
it can, and you add a certain feature, then it can break a game. Um, for example, like changing the text size, for like captions. I feel like when they have captions slash subtitles, they're not always that like built that well. I think if you put on like the subtitles and some of the text, it'll be in the text, the stylized text of whatever the game is,
Yeah.
versus something that's readable
Right.
or something that has contrast, so you can actually see the subtitles on there. And not just that, but then also I guess the closed captions to where what is it? They caption auditory things, like if there's like a plane flying overhead, it'll actually say plane flying
Yeah.
overhead or something like that. You know, those are the things that are needed for to give people more context that can't necessarily hear that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm tapping into other disabilities, like some things that I don't like. I use those options but for me, I don't necessarily need them, like
Yeah.
100%. And that's the thing though, is that a design that's made for somebody can benefit somebody else.
Totally. Yeah.
Like when I say that when we all can win, when everyone can game, we all win. It's that you're you're gonna possibly could use any of these options to make your game experience more enjoyable
Yeah.
or even just playable, and anybody can join the disability community at any point of their life.
Yep.
That's something that a lot of people don't think about. That's something that I didn't think about.
Yeah.
I was 25 when I got injured. 25 years being able-bodied, doing everything. I was in the army, so like doing everything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden not doing everything,
Right.
and um, realizing that this could happen to anybody. You don't wish it on anybody else, but now it's time to, I guess, bring the equity back to where I could still do the things I was doing before,
Yeah.
with a disability. It might not be the exact same, of course, but there's the challenge is able to be uh, achieved. You can tackle that challenge at all. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that there's some really great points that you're making in terms of like if you live long enough, at some point everyone will be disabled, right? That's just how human growth and development work. And this point too of like that could happen to you at any point in your life. And I think too something that's really significant to think about is how diverse accessibility really is when we talk about like features that are necessary in terms of
Mhm.
accessibility, right? So to have more people like you who are getting paid for your point of view, which is incredibly valuable, right? Like the better games will be for everyone, really, truly.
100%.
Like, yeah,
100%.
yeah. Who are some of your streaming inspirations? What kind of streams do you enjoy?
I like I usually watch people that I would consider be friends with. And I find their content, because a lot of their content is a little bit different than mine.
Yeah,
I mean, I follow other disabled streamers, but their content's still different than mine. And I think I find inspiration through peers, to people, because at points, I don't feel like anybody's better than me, but and then again, I don't feel like I'm better than anybody else in that sense. Because the finding everybody's unique strengths and then being able to bring that strength out of a person, and then being able to uplift both of us. It's like a reciprocal type of thing.
yeah,
um yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. We were talking a little bit earlier about like the algorithm and numbers and things. What is your relationship to the numbers and to the algorithm?
Oh man, I've thankfully that so this is I think the algorithm can be a very tedious thing to keep up with.
Yeah.
Um and I feel like it's very, very random. I've posted stuff on TikTok and things that I didn't think would like do well, and they did fairly well. I played this game called Scorn, and it's like a horror like walking simulator. I like to call it,
Yeah.
and I had two videos that did very well, and I don't know how it
Right.
did. And
Right.
then I would post the content, like the similar content afterwards, and would not get the nowhere near the numbers that I got with that video. So it's like you can spend forever chasing the algorithm, or you can just create your content and you become the algorithm.
I like that.
Create because as long as it's a whole thing about doing your own thing, because as long as you're doing your own thing and you're consistent with it and you're genuine with it, people will notice,
Yeah.
and it's only a matter of time. And I feel like those who have the potential to pop off at that point, and be viral, don't it's either their consistency goes away, or they just feel like what they're doing is not like the imposter syndrome. Why would anybody want to watch me?
Yeah.
And I've seen people like it's the oh man, I made this little like analogy, is that with the tortoise and the hare. It wasn't about the tortoise beating the hare. It was about the tortoise enjoying the entire race, enjoying the experience that they had before reaching the goal. Because the tortoise eventually got to the goal, and they happened to win just because. But the hare was all about getting to the goal. Let me see the goal. Go. I gotta get there as fast as possible. But everything in between, you know, they didn't pay attention to, and so then they eventually lost with that. So if you have that tortoise mentality, that you're enjoying and the experience, it's about the journey versus the end goal. Because if you really want it, it's going to happen. It'll 100% happen. But how you get there, I feel like it'll kind of I don't know what to say, like how to describe it on that, but I think you're just going to enjoy that. I think that achieving that goal while like enjoying the experience to getting that goal is key.
Yeah.
I think you'll appreciate achieving that goal a lot more.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's much more sustainable, I think, in the long run, for sure. Well, we talked a little bit before actually like going live today about this kind of idea of like streaming to no one, because that is something that every single streamer at some point has experienced,
Oh
right?
yes.
So when you do experience these moments of kind of self-doubt and you're streaming to no one, like what is your mentality in terms of like, I don't know, experiencing that moment and also motivation going forward?
I think it's the at first when I was looking at it, it's like kind of like the rite of passage.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
When you first hit live, if you are just streaming and you're not in the community or anything like that, or any other community, it's going to be very hard for you to get your viewers, and you'll probably be streaming to 3 or less, maybe 2 or less. One person will pop in, and I think and at the time too, I wasn't, researching on how to like create content and make my content better, or to make my streams more interactive. And that's one way about going things. Not everybody has to do that. I've seen people who have been hanging out in other communities, and then eventually they say, they're going to be streaming, and course, that community kind of goes in and helps them, and they achieve their affiliate status in like a week or something crazy like that, and which is awesome. I mean, it took me years to get affiliate. It took me
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
It was interesting. At one point I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or and what was wrong is that I wasn't present in other communities.
Hmm.
I wasn't trying out there trying to make, you know, connections with other people, or at least find other people that also have a disability, and maybe we can have conversations and then talk about it and then hang out. And not everybody has that ability to go into other communities and talk, because it's like you're busy. Whether your jobs or outside life or anything like that. This is a whole new world. This is a whole new world. A lot of my friends I kind of hang out with, I met through Twitch,
Yeah.
or I just hang out online.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's like streaming did. It did get discouraging at one point, and I think it was Darwin Project. Darwin Project, it was just a game that just started coming out. It was a free to play game, and people were just playing it, and it was like it had this competitive element to it. And I think the ability to be able to interact with other people in that game kind of helped.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, I started hanging out with other streaming communities that I met through Darwin Project. And so that kind of helped boost it, because like that's where like the viewership started going up.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's like probably one of the biggest things. If somebody wants to start streaming, definitely hang out in Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Find people that you feel like would click with your vibe, have the same viewpoints as you. Mostly. I mean, it's always good to have like differences in order to have like a good, healthy conversation. But I really think like if you find people that kind of have a similar mission as you, it'll be easier for you to have genuine conversations. And then if you do, for some reason, like, your intention is that you want to stream and do all that stuff, it'll be an easier conversation to have in that community, because it's not going in there like, oh, hey, how's it going? My name is Mike, and I'm looking to stream, and I just came in here, just blah, blah, blah. I, I don't think that's probably an approach that would go well with a lot of streamers.
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, it gets, it could get to, it gets to that knee jerk reaction of like, oh, you're trying to take my viewers type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it's not even about that, but I think there is a certain etiquette that is needed, social etiquette, especially online.
Yeah.
And it's very hard online too, because you don't have the facial expressions that if we're talking to somebody, face to face and meeting somebody and knowing that, hey, I'm actually being genuine. I'm not trying to be like, hey, you shouldn't watch them, you should come over here and watch me
Right.
because I'm
Right.
cooler and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. The online etiquette and these kind of like unwritten rules, especially like Twitch etiquette, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think too, like really being honest with yourself about this idea of community building. It's like finding people that you vibe with and that you genuinely want to spend time with, and then maybe they want to spend time with you, right? So like it's community building, I think, goes beyond just like me and my stream and the people that hang out in my chat. I think it's like finding other people's streams that's like, I want to support this person because they have similar values to me and I like what they do, you know?
Exactly. I've had random people, just, and it is cool, people that randomly find you on Twitch. I would say specifically other streamers. I've gotten so many like random raids. I'm like, how'd you find me?
Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I'm just playing this game, and just like, and you just come in here with all these people. And it's like, hi, how's it going? And it's cool to see that tags sometimes work.
Yeah.
definitely label your tags specifically. You know, if whether it's you want to, especially when you put tags that relate to your niche. So if you are highly competitive, you know, competitive gaming or ranked play only, um, if you are like LGBTQIA plus, you know, put that onto your tags. If you are an ally, put that onto your tags. You know, just all these things like descriptors that people will help, um, that can find you because people actually do search that up.
Yeah,
Not everybody does, but people actually do.
that's true.
I think also it's like Twitch is trying to make discoverability a little bit better. It's they're kind of they're really slacking on that,
Yeah, totally.
honestly. But yeah, it's I think they're making improvements, you know,
Yeah.
here and there. I think if we're just talking about like specifically the Twitch ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
but if it would be an advice to give anybody else is to diversify your content.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just stay on one platform. If there's another platform out there, try it. Um, and at the minimum, claim your screen name,
Yeah.
claim your username. So you're on there, and even if you don't happen to not use it, nobody could take that from you because in the end, uh, your username becomes part of your brand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A big part of your brand. Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever experience trolls or people like bringing hate to your streams?
You know, I have barely experienced that.
Yeah.
I am very fortunate that hasn't happened to me, and it it's 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 baffling to see that other people experience because it's like, how do these people find them but don't find me, and then do the same things with me? Because I don't know. I
Yeah.
honestly don't know. But I think I've maybe once or twice maybe had somebody try to like trigger me about my accident.
Mm.
I have like my bio on there. It shows like I was in a motorcycle accident and all that stuff. And they were just putting like certain messages that are like, I don't know, something about motorcycle accident, stuff like that. I don't know, they're trying to trigger. And I was like, I don't even know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I think with my short experience in the military that I've grown pretty thick skin,
Yeah.
that I laugh at a lot of things, and I feel like um, doing the opposite of what the troll wants you to do really sets them off.
Hmm.
And whether it's like either to spark an interaction with them or to even try to get and like a negative reaction out of you, if you do that like the opposite, you know, whether you laugh it off or something, that takes experience though.
Yeah.
And slight training, because not everybody is fit to be able to brush that off. And I'm not saying that it doesn't get to me. It does, you know, get to me, but um, I've just grown to this knee jerk reaction of just firing right back at them or just doing exactly the opposite of them. And
Yeah.
you know, but I'm just, I guess I'm not that type of person to. I don't know. I haven't found that it's like my stream has been inviting of that, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I haven't really experienced that much like like stuff from that. Like whether it's in any type of marginalization, whether it's like racism or just like ableism or anything like that. And if I have, it's just really really minimal, and it's just like a blink.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's literally a blink in my existence,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they go away. And then you know what? I have incredible mods who understand what environment I'm trying to promote in my chat, and they'll slam that ban hammer super quick.
Yep.
You know, and I'm thankful for my mods, and I'm thankful for like my friends that call people out and stuff like that. And maybe that's the reason why I haven't didn't feel like it's been like a big experience for me, you know. And I'm not saying that it's ever going to happen, but it's just, that I guess those are like the things that like how I would deal with it.
Yeah.
I would just basically do the basic things, whether it's, just calling them out, definitely it's like, because this is whatever, if they come into your stream, that's your platform, that's your space. You could promote the space however you want, hopefully in a very positive manner, but like they're coming to your space, so then you have all the rights to push them out, to do whatever you need to protect your environment.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, this idea of like needing that experience and needing training on it, because I think it's only human that will have these kind of like knee-jerk reactions to things. Like
Yeah.
it makes sense, right? Especially when sometimes people are able to just like find that one thing and just like really hone in on it, no, with backseat gamers, my favorite thing is to do the opposite. It's like, oh, so you want me to go left here? So I should go left here? I'll go left here. And they hate it, and it's great.
Oh, that's so good.
It's so good. It works really well. It's so much better than me being like, don't backseat. But there are moments where I get really frustrated with it, So it's, yeah. I think there's like this, like, we need to like have some like self-compassion and like understand that like, yeah, sometimes it gets to us, while also I really liked what you said, like recognize that it's a blink. It's like a blip in time, and it isn't indicative of like anything about you or your space or anything like
Exactly.
that.
I feel like the sooner you come to that realization that you could use that as like your first line of defense, that oh, this is just a bling, it's like, and then that they're coming to your space, so then it's almost like, oh, you really want, to mess with like like the dog's gonna not just bark but bite.
Yeah, yeah. And blessed are the mods that take care of us and just like
Yes,
having
yes,
people in
shout
your
out to
corner.
all the mods
Shout
out
out to the
there.
mods. Love a good mod. Let's see, Twitch chat, by the way, we're gonna come over to you in just a second here and get some questions for you. So if anyone has a question for Mike, go ahead and type it in chat and we'll get
Yeah,
into
I saw
it.
a couple of them on
Yeah,
there.
we'll go
They're
back
out
into
there.
it. I
Saw something, let's see.
was gonna say, I think Kai Wildcat asked one earlier. Yeah, Kai Wildcat says, are there things you'd like to see Twitch and other platforms add to encourage or enable more accessibility?
I July was Disability Pride Month, and I think I've only seen one stream that was on the front page, and I don't think it was because of Disability Pride Month. I think it's because they took the action to put in, to get on the front page and everything, and they made the efforts to basically help promote for Disability Pride Month.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I did. I was on Twitter. I have a friend that she was like, "Hey, day one, asking Twitch to support, disabled creators for
Yes.
Disability Pride Month." I was like, you know what? Let's do this. And then I was like, and it's like the days, it's like the month keeps on going, and it's like I'm not seeing anything. It's like,
Crickets, man.
and it's weird because it's like if you want to be performative in celebrating a whole bunch of communities, what's this is one community that's huge, that anybody could be a part of, that it's one of the most diverse communities out
Absolutely.
there. And I don't know why it's not being promoted as much.
It's wild too, because in terms of accessibility, the online space is one of the most accessible spaces for disabled folks to like have community and like socialize,
Exactly.
right? So like,
That's one of the biggest things, is like a social environment.
yeah,
That's one reason why I love promoting video games, is that it's not just me playing video games by myself, it's playing with friends, like actual friends.
totally. Yeah, totally. Kai Wildcat also asks, I've used an Xbox controller for PC and Steam games. Have you been able to configure the adaptive controller for PC-based games?
I was able to, for a couple games. I'm over here looking at my Xbox adaptive controller. There's like new, I guess, programs or features coming out that you can configure the controller to work as a keyboard.
Ooh, interesting.
So, and not just one, one function for one button, but multiple functions for one button. So it can be contextual in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if like I always, for example, is that if you are using one button to interact, open doors, open things and grab things, you could also use that button to also reload in games. So like mostly like but battle royale games when
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about like controllers with the keyboard, there's a button for every single, function on there. And I feel like this is like a new feature that I still need to, try out. But in the past, like it's been hit or miss on playing PC games, especially on Steam.
Mm.
Um, because I use the Xbox Elite controller and the Xbox Adaptive controller, and they're co-piloted to work as one
Okay.
controller. And not all games recognize that it's a co-pilot. They recognize them as two separate controllers.
Gotcha.
And so then one of the big, I think a lot of the games, so that have anti-cheat
Mm-hmm.
will like they won't let the two controllers work as one. It's either you when if you use one controller, it activates that controller, and then if you use the other controller, it deactivates the controller, activates this controller. So there's like that delay in your button pressing. And if you're playing a competitive game, that's gonna cost you your life.
Yeah, rough,
So,
man. Yeah.
they're making more strides now, but I think
Mm-hmm.
before it was slightly a struggle. That's why I played mostly on console. Um, and then when I do play on PC, like Valheim, I believe before it came out on Xbox, and I had to use another program called Rewasd,
Oh
Rewasd,
yeah.
and that it was able to configure basically what Xbox or Microsoft is doing to allow mapping onto a controller with keyboard keys
Cool.
through that program. And it worked, but then when you're a person that was a variety streamer at the time, you're playing all the new games that are coming out, so then not all the games are going to interact the same way
Yeah.
with. So especially, so then you would have to slightly configure or reconfigure things and then fine tune things. And so imagine doing that for multiple games every single time you're wanting to play a new game. It's tedious,
Totally.
and you're already presented with challenges if you already, if you're needing certain accessibility features. And so just adding on top of that, it gets exhausting, and then it becomes discouraging. And then
Totally.
so I haven't played too many games on the PC, but I found the drive again. I want to play Valorant.
Yeah.
I have a mouse I'm gonna try to figure out how to put like a mold on to where I can place my hand on, so I could
Okay.
like do one of these numbers, and then also have like a little brace thing. So then when I could like pick up the mouse and move, because it's good right here when like I'm moving the mouse, but as soon as I lift my hand up, it's like, oh, I gotta reconfigure it and do all that stuff. So
Gotcha.
kind of like a quick, I guess, on and off position for
Okay.
me. And then using um, the Xbox keyboard mapping, or the controller keyboard mapping. That's what I'm gonna call it. I don't know what it is officially, but I can have my left hand, instead of using a keyboard, I could use the Xbox adaptive controller, and then have the keys arrayed to where they're more accessible to me. And then I could use that as my controller, and then use the mouse as, my right stick essentially, and then
Yeah.
use two buttons on there. And then that'll enable me to play PC games, not just play PC games, but play PC games a lot more competitively.
Definitely.
I think that's a good distinction, because I was able to play video games before the Xbox Adaptive Controller came out. I was using a PlayStation 3 controller, when I first started getting back into gaming with Black Ops 2 and Borderlands 2. But, I was just able to play it. I wasn't able to be like, all right, I want to. And like with Black Ops, I only used the shotgun, and I never aimed down sights at
Yeah.
all. So I configured the gun to work for me, to where I could just run around and then shoot at a certain distance, and then knowing my, distances and everything, I was able to be successful with that. But I want to be able to not just do that, but be able to tap into the other styles of play.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to allow me to do that,
Yeah. Not
especially
just
on PC,
playing.
but be
Right.
competitive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I was just talking to a friend yesterday actually about the Switch and how frustrating it is. On Switch, they let you do remapping of your buttons, which is great, but it's across all games. They don't let you like save it for a specific game. So what you're talking about, this idea of like, well, that's great, but I'm not going to remap it every single time I want to play a different game. That's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
so it's funny because it's like it all comes back to what you've just been saying is like any accessibility feature is going to make life better for everybody, not just
Exactly.
for specific disabled people. Yeah.
There even so Apex Legends is another example where they pros were using a certain colorblind feature. I think it was the Tritonopia one, and it made when a certain character went into this mode where their vision was different, and they're able to kind of like pinpoint enemies a lot easier. Um, the normal, I guess, without any of like the colorblind features, it made like the reds too bright or indistinguishable from like certain people or just like certain targets. But when they enabled the colorblind feature, it made it a lot easier for pros to differentiate, certain objects, and they were able to play better.
Yeah.
So and it's interesting, like it gets all the way up to that competitive level to where it's going to benefit somebody.
Totally.
And if
Yeah.
it's an option out there for anybody, then anybody can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Iron Biscuit says, been listening to you guys dive into the accessibility subject and gained a lot of perspective. So I don't know how to, so I don't know what to ask at this time. But I saw Mike having Apex clips on his Twitch profile. What's your favorite legend?
Seer right now. Seer, I am a character, or at least a gamer, that likes to have information of like my opponents. So usually anybody that I play would at least in like these first person shooters games, is that games that allow me, or characters that allow me to get as much information, because I with just at least me as like personality wise, is that I plan a lot of things. So if I can know where certain things are, I can already go through the algorithm of, okay, I need to either go high ground, or I need to make a decision to go here, versus trying to react to certain things.
Yeah,
It gives me, allows me to pre-plan things versus like to have to initially react.
that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any like passions or hobbies outside of streaming?
I so the passion, I think the biggest passion, it kind of helps drive the stream, is my advocacy. Um, Before I moved from Colorado, I actually volunteered over at Craig Hospital weekly. Um, and I basically, there was an adaptive gaming program, and new patients, or whether there were spinal cord injury or brain injury patients, came down to hang out and have fun. And I was able to be a peer mentor, and then also get people to play games. Um, and just like the whole mentoring thing was, it stood out the most, because it made it worth me being there. And if I only talk to one person, and show them like, this is the whole world that you're going to be able to get into.
Yeah.
A lot of the patients are young. We're talking about high school,
Yeah.
and so it's like suffering these traumatic injuries. I'm thankful that a lot of them have really good attitudes, like amazing attitudes, versus how when I first got injured. So I think that really helps. And me trying to, grab onto that attitude, and then show them that, hey, these are things that you're going to be able to do, you know, versus, yeah, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. But
Right.
I don't really talk about that stuff. I talk about all the opportunities, everything that's open to you. I always tell them that, hey, welcome to a community of problem solvers,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
that's what you're going to be. You're going to be able to figure things out,
Yeah.
and to be able to do that through gaming, to give them that mentality through gaming, that especially if they loved gaming before, and then they feel like they couldn't do it, now because of that, and then showing them like that they could do it. And I don't really necessarily show them, I just kind of like give them the tools, and then just slowly just talk with them, see what their function is at the time, because hopefully they either advance in their function to where they can like gain stuff back. And if not, then I always celebrate the things that they can do,
Yeah. Yeah.
because whatever that they can do, I can use that.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
give me a little finger, give me something. I was like, oh, I can use that. Let's do this. We're gonna play video games,
Yeah.
and then they could use that mentality throughout their rehab.
Yeah.
And
I love this idea of being a problem solver. Well, you were mentioning like making a mold so that you can use your mouse in a way that functions for you,
exactly,
right? Like
yes.
that's so innovative, and it's something that I think, yeah, it's that kind of like, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? This idea of like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I want to play video games, so I'm going to figure out a way to make this work, you know?
Exactly. And then not, once you figure that out, then it's like, hey, you put that out to the world, and it could help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about this kind of idea of like having an attitude like after becoming disabled, or just like when you're struggling with like not being able to do things that you used to be able to do, like for you, what is the line between like having a grieving period and allowing yourself to like feel the devastation of that, because it's real, right? Like that's hard for anyone to cope with, not being able to do things, while at the same time really wanting to focus on like what is it I can do? Like, does that question make sense?
I think it's like, it's ongoing for me.
Sure.
Um, and for me, I don't feel like that feeling will ever go away. But I think the tools that I could use to mitigate it have become stronger,
Yeah.
to the point that if I ever find myself into these situations where it's like I can't, or it's like, "Oh, I wish I could do certain things like that," the just like the mentality that I've kind of given myself is that you can allow yourself to feel that. That's the thing. Those are human emotions,
Yeah.
and you can feel it, and they'll be there. It's not about erasing it, because you can't I can't control my brain, you know, but if I can mitigate the things, and it becomes less and less of the duration of me being sad about
Yeah.
that, focusing on those things becomes very, very short.
I love that. There's this quote from BoJack Horseman that I quote all the time because it's just so good. It's this idea of like it doesn't get easier, you get better. Which I
Yes.
really, right, like, so it's one of those things that I think is really helpful to keep in mind. Is like we're not gonna suddenly wake up one day and like, oh yeah, everything's fine, I have a great attitude. It's like, but you gain these kind of skills over time that just make it, I don't know, it becomes more normal, I think, to cope with these things maybe.
Right, and you could do it a lot faster,
Yeah.
you don't find yourself in these longer periods of, I guess I would say, sadness as often, especially when you're working on those tools to help mitigate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And consistency is always, be consistent about it. It's whether it's going to happen, and attitude. Like the only thing, like few things that you can control in this universe is your mentality and how you react to things. Um, Everything else is outside force.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
So the stronger you are with your attitude, and the stronger you are with learning how to react to things, then that, yeah, knee jerk reactions happen. But then if you, I call it a tactical pause. If you take a tactical pause and you sit back and you look at things, things might don't aren't as bad as they are. You know, they are bad, but honestly, when you think about it, it helps you cope. You know, for the fact that it's not as bad, and you're able to deal with these situations a lot better.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. What are some things that have surprised you since you started streaming?
Let's see. I think the advancements in technology and the willingness of other people supporting you.
Yeah.
I found that fairly surprising, especially people that I don't know. Like I've never like interacted with somebody, or for like I would say more just like strangers. It's found it fairly surprising that I guess not that many people know about different types of disabilities, and I guess that is surprising to me now. I guess it's less surprising to me now. It's more surprising to me before.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, nobody like. There's some people don't have never known anybody that's used a wheelchair. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and they or even quadriplegic or just like any other type of disability. It's and oh I think the amount of people who have invisible disabilities.
Yeah. Totally.
I think that that community is definitely not as seen, for obvious reasons, because if you saw me and I wasn't in a wheelchair and you couldn't see anything physical, you most people would say that, oh, a completely able body. It's like, well, there's a whole, like, I guess, community of people that just get swept under the rug because it's like, oh, it's not, doesn't look like it's affecting you, and so
Yeah.
it's not really something that needs to be talked
Yeah.
about.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in terms of like representation, right? It's like if Professor X is the only representation of like disability that we have in like the comic book realm, like
Right.
that's not that's it's not enough, you know. Very
Like
simply put.
Wildcat was saying, like talking about the different variations of quadriplegia.
Yeah.
When somebody thinks of quadriplegic, they think of Christopher Reeves or Stephen Hawking. You know, and quadriplegia or tetraplegia, depending where you come from, it's just an impairment in all four of your limbs. So I can actually have like more movement in my hands and still be a quadriplegic. And I believe it's more because of the level of injury. That's where it usually would differentiate your whether a person's a quadriplegic versus a paraplegic. And that's usually through the cervical vertebrae. So you have like your cervical C1 and then all the way down to C7, C8.
Okay.
And that's usually if you break anything or if you get injured right there, and it'll usually affect all four of your limbs. Anything usually below that, when you get to thoracic and lower, it usually just affects more of your lower body versus your upper body as much.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, it's spinal cord injuries and nerve damage is a very, very complicated issue, and it's interesting to see everybody's experiences.
Yeah.
I could also say this too, is that if I had a twin that got in the same exact accident at the same exact way that I got injured, their recovery, and they had the same, like their recovery could be different, and then
Yeah.
also their injury could have like differences too. So it's like the spinal, not the spinal cord. I guess your nervous system is like a fingerprint. Everybody has a different
Interesting.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if they all work similar.
It's a really good point because we've talked about like diversity within disability, like as this kind of like giant umbrella, but like when we get down into like like diversity in quadriplegia versus diversity in color blindness or like anything, like it is so varied. It's a really good point to consider, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is interesting too, like when we talk about privilege and kind of being, ignorant of certain things because of your privilege. Like I think that it's it's like disheartening and surprising, but also not when you find people that like don't know these things. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and so especially on the internet, it's kind of interesting because you find yourself in this place of like being an educator and being an advocate, whether or not you even intend to be, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, right now, so now I always find it as an opportunity
Yeah.
to educate somebody, not to be like, oh, now I get to educate somebody, but
Sure.
it's that if you bring awareness to them, then that's going to that'll naturally spread to everybody in their community.
Totally.
You know, so it's like, oh, you know, I talked to somebody who was a quadriplegic, and you know, this is the experiences that they've had, or you know, and then maybe further down the line, you know, since that me and that person had that interaction, and then they meet somebody who has quadriplegia, then it allows them to use that knowledge to, you know, and be a little bit more welcoming to that person.
Definitely. Yeah. Do you have any pre-stream or post-stream rituals, like things that you do to get ready or things you do to kind of wind down?
Oh my goodness. So to get ready, it's funny. Like grown the bad habit of if it's on a stream day, I would probably just get up like 2 hours before. I should be getting up way earlier than that,
Yeah.
especially if I'm an afternoon streamer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think after stream rituals, you know, after the rating, it's like it's usually food time. You know, for the most time, like I sometimes I'll eat on stream. I think that's just a personal preference. Some people say don't ever eat on stream. I'm like, no, I'm hungry. I need my snacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
But um, that I think definitely is like I need to recharge my battery a little bit, because with streaming, if you are very active, you're gonna be talking a lot.
Yeah.
Your attention is gonna be just boom focused on a whole bunch of things all at once, and and that's just me, at least like personality wise. And after that, I'm like, okay, I just need to just like chill out. I need to take off my headphones, and it's like one of those like I just want to be in complete silence for like five
Yeah.
minutes, and then then I go. So I usually will like, you know, take my dog out, and then I'll just like stand out, like be out there, just hang out for a little bit, and then just like come back, because usually I'm probably raiding somebody and I just want to come back to say hi. Or
Sure.
sometimes I'll do a raid and run, and a lot of people, you know, are super understanding. If like I raid somebody that I know, I'm like, hey, I'm raiding running. They're like, okay, cool. And then I usually preface that too for like everybody that's there in before the raid. So yeah, it's and like probably I'm going to be forming new habits here. So on stream days, I'm going to try to be getting up earlier, to where I have like a little morning fitness routine, and I might be able to create content off of that too. It's like a lot of the things that revolves like, oh, can I create content around this? I don't know if
Yeah.
you found yourself doing that. I
Yeah,
find
for
myself
sure.
doing that a lot. It's like, oh, you know, like it gives me a reason to like, oh, let me go out to this event. Oh, I could actually record a vlog for this event and then use it for my YouTube content and stuff like
Sure.
that. It's like, but yeah, I think the morning is going to be fitness routine, and then hopefully maybe stream it, and kind of bring more awareness for fitness and somebody with a disability, physical disability. How would I get quote unquote fit?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you segued beautifully into another question I have. Like, where is the line for you between kind of your personal life and things that you want to keep for you versus things that, you know, you want to make content or the way you want to present yourself, I guess, online?
I find myself merging the two more,
Yeah.
especially here. Um, I'm living with my parents. We're all in the same house, but I didn't find that as like a quote unquote downgrade. I found that as an opportunity to be like, because people have seen me play games with my dad. So now they're going to be able to see my dad, and then be able to, I could bring my dad into the conversation, because he could bring his experiences. You know, he's Vietnam vet. Um, he grew up in during the civil rights era. He's African American. Um, so like his experiences just growing up, and that's something that people are like more interested in learning. And same thing with my mom. She's Thai, immigrated from Thailand. Um, like incredibly hardworking person, and she's also a cook. So I'm bringing in like cooking content in the
Yeah.
future. Um, yeah, I'm trying to probably bring more lifestyle content into, um, I guess my whole like just I guess, portfolio.
Yeah.
I guess because it used to be just gaming, and then it evolved into advocacy, and then now I want to bring more lifestyle content of like, oh, what are the things like, oh, you want to actually see me go drive, somewhere, in my van, or hey, let's go to the beach or something like that. It's like, oh, let's just do more things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like it was like a slow evolution of things. It's like I didn't. I wanted to take things a little bit slower. Fortunately, I'm retired, so I don't have to like work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's really a big thing too for those who are trying to, do full-time content creation. I highly suggest that you have a guaranteed job,
Yeah.
um, or just at least a guaranteed income to where you could at least have some type of medical benefits and stuff like that, because that stuff is super important. As long as you get that foundation taken care of, then pursue your dreams, especially, and you can have this start out as a hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of started out as a little bit of a hobby, and then it just started evolving a little bit more and more and more, as my community started growing, and as I started to realize, myself on the things that I'm able to give to other people,
Yeah.
whether it's like education, mentorship, and just info.
Yeah, definitely. Twitch chat, thank you for your questions and for all of your stories and your perspective. Really appreciate it. Um, Mike, what is some advice that you would give to your younger streamer self?
Wow. If I give it to I would say that I would probably give him the whole tortoise and the hare story,
It's a great, yeah, the way that you put it is really great.
because that story was, or the analogy didn't really come up until just recently.
Hmm.
Because I was just like thinking about, man, this is just the where I've like gotten to, on uh getting partnered with Xbox, and before that, working with Xbox on, the Xbox adaptive controller. That was a start. I always say, this is the start,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a finished mission. It's always ongoing. And um yeah, I would definitely give him the tortoise and the hare story in that fashion of that analogy, is definitely enjoy your journey. Um, Especially, you're not hurting for money. Fortunately, there's a lot of things. Fortunately, you got support in your life. Um, Now you're gonna be able to do all these things. Yeah, that's what I'd probably tell him, is that,
Yeah.
this it's gonna be a good ride. It's gonna be a good ride. Just enjoy it.
Love it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's great advice for anyone, I think, for sure. Do you have any goals or projects coming up?
So since I moved, though I am supporting Craig Hospital fundraising through like fundraising campaigns all the way up until the end of 2023. But throughout this whole time and this upcoming fall, I am looking to find other local hospitals, spinal cord injury rehabilitation centers. There's like a couple over in Orlando. I want to start an adaptive gaming program there,
Cool.
especially if there isn't one, or if there is one, I want to vastly improve it and then start supporting them, and then basically do what I was doing physically over at Craig Hospital, but physically over here in like
Nice.
the Orlando area, Orlando, Florida area. So
Great.
Those
Awesome.
are the goals, and very very. I'm excited. I'm excited for it because
Yeah.
just seeing the success on what Craig Hospital was doing, I know it can happen anywhere else, and I know that it's needed. I definitely I know it's something that's not tapped into, and if I'm not seeing it in articles or anything like that, it's I say it's not happening, or if it is, it's not getting the support that it's needed.
Right. Right. Totally. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I was gonna say, I know Fox Mulder shared a story about being in the hospital and not having access to gaming, but he convinced them to hook up a TV and console to a portable trolley so that the other kids could use it, which is
That's
awesome.
awesome. Have
Yeah.
you heard of Gamers Outreach?
I don't think I have.
Gamers Outreach, when they first started, they were making carts.
Okay.
Basically, I think they're called go karts, literally. But they have a monitor, a console, and controllers on there.
Okay.
So if you almost kind of think of like how like those demo like
Yeah.
gaming things that you see, it's like that, but it's a hospital grade setup, and then they send them out to all like mostly like rehab and children's hospitals. And so then if any kids want to play video games or whatever, they have a whole bunch of those cards, and then they can play video games. And they've uh they've gotten huge over the years, and I'm glad that they've like gotten a lot of recognition
Yeah.
on doing stuff like that, because I'm thinking about like 10 years ago, even so tomorrow is actually my 12th year anniversary from being injured.
Oh, wow.
Yes, August 7th, 2011 was when I was injured. And the rehab program was good at the time, but the adaptive gaming program was essentially me having a Wii remote ace bandaged to my hand
Oh my God.
just because, and so I could play Wii bowling.
Right.
And that was it. But I couldn't physically, hit buttons or anything like that unless I used my other hand to press buttons and stuff like that. So that was the adaptive gaming program, quote unquote adaptive gaming program. uh, it's evolved so much over the decade,
Yeah.
and I just want to see it get better and better.
Totally.
Adaptive VR is starting to make an emergence out. They've been working on that over at Craig Hospital with like just using gesture controls. Like it's gonna be so awesome. It's so awesome that like so they have certain games on, I think it's the Oculus, that it shows your arm movement, your maps, and like what your hands are doing. And so it takes the model, and so you don't even have to hold controllers, so you can still interact with certain things with
Oh.
just like your hands. So and then before I was working on a small project. I don't know what the outcome of it was, but it's basically remapping gestures. So usually, if like you want to pinch something, like I can't just physically grab and pinch, right? So in order to do that, I would want to hit, whatever the pinch motion is, and then whatever I do, I can that'll become the motion or the function for pinching.
Right.
And because everybody's movement is varies, the range of movement is varied depending, their just level of function. So I'm excited. I'm super excited to see what's going to coming out for that for VR. That's like the next step. I mean, it's this stuff isn't really completely finished with like the console and the controller and like playing on PC, but we're already starting on like what else is out there that we can get access to.
That's awesome. That's very exciting. Well, and yeah, Fox mentioned how boring hospitals can be for kids, and I think to have, not only to have something to like help keep your just morale and your spirit up, but also have something that reminds you that like this is possible for you. This is something you can still enjoy video games, and it's gonna be okay.
Yes.
It's awesome.
And then it's not just gonna be okay. You're gonna have a great life,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Um, because I always be telling them, hey, you always got me. You always hit me up. I'm online all the time. There's other people out there that are going through the same situation or have gone through the same situation as you. And it's all about um, learning from everybody, on what their experiences are, because Yeah, it's very it could be discouraging, you know, that you know you growing up and if you'd never had a disability and then all of a sudden you basically lose like entire functions like of your hands and stuff like that. I have a friend that you know losing a function in their hand more and more and you know and like yeah, it's not as bad as somebody like me or somebody that has no arm or anything like that, but they're it's still valid, right? Their
Totally.
experience is still valid, and in order to be instead of saying like, "Oh, you don't have it as bad as somebody else," like you don't I don't focus on that. I focus on, well, this is, you know, what we can do here. And then if things happen to you not progress as much and you know you start regressing on your function in your hands, we have way more options that you could still enable you to do whatever you're wanting to do.
Right.
And so kinda just giving them like, throwing solutions at them, like, as things, like, happen to them and, you know, but still validating their emotions because that's very important is to not like, not really gaslight somebody. And that
Totally. Yeah.
you don't have it as bad as somebody, but, you know, if that person has never experienced anything else, that is the worst that they're going to experience.
Well, and
So
just knowing that you're enough and you're valid, whatever your experience
100%.
is, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Guys, go follow Mike on all the things. Here's his link tree. And then I'll shout you out one more time just so people can follow. So go follow because you don't want to miss his next stream, okay?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'll actually be streaming tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
The return to stream. I'm
Yay.
gonna be working more on some of the audio and making sure I got all my stuff dialed in and everything,
Nice.
but it's
Yeah.
just, you know, kinda like, I guess the soft return to stream, you know, not too crazy.
Love it.
But I think it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be good vibes. And I'm glad that, you know, we're able to have this talk and this discussion about just
Yeah.
like why we go live, you know. That's I think that's something that everybody needs to ask themselves.
Yeah. It's
Everybody
really
needs to ask themselves if
interesting,
you create
right?
content, why do you hit that live button? You know, is it mission oriented? Is it for you? Because all these reasons are valid.
Yeah.
You know, you could do it as a hobby, you could do it for fun, you could do it to educate people, you can do it to be a mentor or to help aspire people to want to do things, you know, similar to what you're doing.
Yeah.
All those are valid reasons. You know, and none of them are like better than the other. You know, it's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But you got to at least know why you hit live though.
Yeah. I think it
Definitely. I feel
helps.
like that's important.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps you to kind of know like, you know, what your goals are and what your motivation is and to be it helps you stay grounded in it, I think, more than
Mhm.
anything else, you know.
100%.
Yeah. Well, to wrap things up here, I have a little like 10 question questionnaire. So this is just like
Yeah.
quick rapid fire. It's inspired by James Lipton, Bernard Pivot, and CJ the X. Mike the Quad, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Which game or activity do you love to stream the most?
Apex Legends.
Which game or activity do you hate to stream the most?
Oh, probably like Elden Ring like games, like Souls like.
Yeah. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I think the 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 potential that whatever I do is going to help everyone and not just help one person.
Yeah. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I would say probably like the constant negative attitude of just anything. Being in the hole, that it does turn me off, but I feel like trying to learn a little bit more compassion to try to get who like if it's a you know specific person, then to get them out of that rut in order to enable them to kind of progress and move on from that attitude.
Yeah. Which streamer would you like to meet most in real life?
Man, I would say wow. You know, wow. There's like a couple of them on here. I kind of want to like so I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah.
Hasanabi. So I would like pick, like, not really pick his brain, but just to see like how he is, personally, like in person. Um, besides like being on stream and stuff like that. I think he has an interesting outlook, and have like pretty interesting like talking points.
Yeah.
Like not everything I agree with, but it's like I think that it's hopefully he's a person that's willing to have a conversation.
What's something you would like to try on stream but never have?
um, I would probably say an IRL con stream. Going to a convention IRL, using the IRL backpacks or whatever the mobile setups are. I haven't really done that. I've done like, off the phone, and it was like just spur of the moment, like, oh, we could just do it. But
Right.
actually dedicating a stream to be like, all right, we're gonna go to so and so con, we're gonna be looking at this, we're gonna, actually it's kind of like a live vlog in that
Right.
sense.
Right. Yeah, yeah. What is something you would never want to do on stream?
Um Never want to do I don't know. I probably get in like a live argument with somebody,
Okay.
like with another streamer.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't like drama like that.
Yeah.
No, or at least because it's just yeah. I'm not the person that likes that type of drama where people would argue with each other online, or
Yeah.
I like having a conversation. At least like how we're doing, and like maybe if the conversation had like some differences, like some disagreements and stuff like that, that's okay. But like to where like a shouting match and all that stuff, I'm not really about. I don't know. I feel like I've gotten too old for that stuff.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Why do you go live?
To to I go live because I want to bring the mentality of peer mentorship to everyone. And it doesn't have to be the idea of peer mentorship through like disability. It's just being a peer mentor in general to somebody through whatever experience you have, because that will enable and empower the people that you talk to hopefully do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow-up question. Why do you really go live?
I really do go live because I this is probably like one of my only social things that I honestly do. And it keeps me connected with the people that I've met online internationally. And yeah, that's probably right. It's like it's fairly social to me because in the end, I'm not as social as people think I am.
Totally. I get that. Yeah. All right. Final question. You're on your deathbed. You know exactly how much time you have. You have any and all resources available to you. Viewer count doesn't matter. Commercial viability, none of that matters. What do you do for your final stream on Earth?
Wow. It's going to be probably it'll probably most likely be like some type of charity stream, which would fund adaptive gaming programs to um internationally to rehabilitation hospitals,
Love it.
to be able to know that there would be programs that I've seen help people over at Craig Hospital do the same to everyone that has gone through that experience around the world.
It's
Because
awesome.
quadriplegic doesn't end in the US. I was
Right.
like, I want to do this like world scale. Then if this is my absolute last thing, then I want to have everybody do it. And then it's in the end, it's honestly, it's not about having my name out there. It's just having that work done and knowing that that work is going to help other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, this was so wonderful.
I enjoyed this a lot. This
Yay,
is really
good.
cool.
I'm so glad. It was so nice to get to know you. Like, I remember when I first found your stream, I was like, oh, like he's someone I want to talk to. So I'm glad. Thank you for just like sharing your perspective and sharing your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is really good. I definitely, everybody else that's not here hasn't followed Abbers, please hit that follow button. There's going to be more people that she's going to talk to, and you're going to learn so much about the Twitch community that isn't represented enough.
Thanks. I
And I
appreciate
think
that a
is a
lot.
good place to have that conversation.
It's been a lot of fun so far. I've gotten to know a lot of really cool people, and you
It's
are
cool.
among
Yeah,
them.
I was looking at like the whole list. I was like, wow, you talk to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's been, we're almost, I think in September, it'll be a year now that I've been doing this.
That's
so,
amazing.
Yeah, it's
That's
really cool.
really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It was one of those things that was like kind of a dream for a couple years and then finally was like, okay, just do it. Like stop thinking about it, just do it. And I'm really glad that I have. So, yeah.
I think that's another thing too, is just, you just gotta just do it.
Yeah.
And I think people are so worried about being perfect, for their first video or first piece of content that gets in the way of actually producing that content.
Yep. It's so true. It's so true. Well, it was what we were talking about before. It's like you can start out on an Xbox with no camera, right? And you can add that equipment and keep going,
100%.
So, yeah. Yeah. Well, I would love to send this party off to somebody that you know. Is there someone online right now that we can raid, send the love to?
Let's see.
And meanwhile, chat, here is your raid message. Let them know that Mike the Quad sent us, okay? So you can copy paste that and, do all the things.
I don't know. Let's see if I have anybody online right now. Oh wait, who's this? This is. I haven't seen them in a while, but they are. They're doing just chatting. But have you heard of Hello? It's Colo.
No.
They are British. It says they like space games, like kind of like the narrative type of games, but they talk about accessibility a lot, especially on Twitter and in the UK space.
Perfect.
And I feel like they're pretty good at just being a champion in that. Looks like they're on their BRB screen right now, but here I could give you. Let me shoot you.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to put the link at?
In the chat is perfect, actually. In Twitch chat is great. Fox and Kai Wildcat, it's so good to see you. It's so good to see everybody. Iron Biscuit and Lord
Thanks
A7X,
everybody for joining
welcome.
in.
Yeah. Appreciate you all. I know I don't get to talk to you all directly, but it's always good seeing you in chat. Perfect. Thank you. Let's see. Hello, it's Colo. Nice. Okay. So everybody, make sure that Hello It's Colo knows that Mike is the person that sent us. And then if you or someone you know would be a good guest for Why We Go Live, you can send an email to whywegolive@gmail.com. You can follow Why We Go Live on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. And then, of course, go follow Mike. Please, please, please. The returning stream tomorrow afternoon. So be there.
Tomorrow.
Awesome.
Eastern. Tomorrow afternoon Eastern.
Eastern.
For those who don't know, yeah, because I know everybody's on different time zones and stuff. So.
Perfect. Yeah, good call. Thank you. Awesome. All right, so go yep. Tell Hello It's Colo. We say hi, and I'll see you next time, okay? Bye, everybody. We're rating. It's happening. And stream.